say at model.deposited amount. There we go. That's it. Let's run this and see what happens. So we should have two values on the page. One is the price for a soda, and the other is how much they deposited. So, neither one of those are formatted for money, so we need to format both of those values. I should have known they were decimals, not a string coming back. So, let's fix that. Okay? In order to fix that, what we need to do is we need to do a string.format. So, between the at and the model, okay, so I'm going to put a space there. I'm going to say string dot, and then this is a format. And the format for a currency string is 0:C. All right, that's a format. Then you say comma, and then what you want to format. In this case, model.sodaprice. And the reason I move the at symbol over here instead of in front of model is because that's what starts the C# code. And then the Razor page is smart enough to know that this tag right here is not C#. It's actually HTML code. Therefore, it goes back to or reverts back to rendering as HTML. It's a pretty smart little system there. All right, we do the same thing. So I'll copy and paste this actually. Oh, bother. All right, there we go. When you have something highlighted like that and you accidentally click and drag just a little bit, you move it around. So I copy this and just remember deposited amount. Okay, so deposited amount. And that should be what we need to show our deposited amount. All right, so 65 cents in the US and 0, but it's 0.00 with a $sign in front. That's again US. So if your machine where this is running has, let's just say euros instead, that should format that for euros with a comma instead of a decimal point, because that's how you would do it. Okay, so it should format properly for your particular region. Where that gets tricky is when you want to format that for the particular region of the user, and there's more than one region. So that might be a little bit trickier, kind of out of the scope of this video though. Okay, now what we want to do is display those sodas. So what I'm going to do is start off by having a row, because I want a couple of things in here. What I want is I want a list of the sodas and the option to buy the soda in kind of like 2/3 of the page. But then on the right hand side, I want the output of our commands. So, hey, you just bought a soda, or you bought a soda and here's your change. That's kind of on the right, is what I want to see. So to do that, what I'm going to do is break this up by saying div class equals row. And this is a bootstrap thing. So I'm going to say this is now a row, which means it'll have up to 12 divisions inside of it, which I'm going to divide into 8 and 4. So div class equals call-sm-8, which means I want this to be a column that's 8 out of 12 wide for small, medium, and large pages. For really small pages, this will actually revert to be the whole width. But for small, medium, and large, it's going to be 8 out of 12, which is 2/3 of the width of the page. Okay, so that's what this div will be. And I'll create another one that's the other 4. So div class equals call-sm-4. If you're not familiar with Bootstrap, it's not a hard syntax. It's just one you have to kind of get used to using. And there's some pretty common things out there. The really cool thing though, if you go to getbootstrap.com, okay, in fact, I'll put that right in here. So let's put a code comment. So this will be https:// Go there and look at their examples. And if you're using Bootstrap 3, we're using 4 because that's what .NET Core uses. You cannot upgrade from 3 to 4. That's not how it works. So if you're on 3 already, you'd have to redo all your pages in order to go to 4. So just know that whatever major version you're on, stay with that major version. You can upgrade inside the major version, but you can't upgrade outside the major version. So we're on 4 right here. So go to getbootstrap.com, and that will by default be using 4 as the for all of their examples. And they have tons of examples that do everything. But if you want to go to the version 3 for something you're working on, there's a drop down. You choose version 3, and it will give you that version's web page with all the examples. And I do have a video on that on my channel, but I just want to kind of point that out. So with this, we're now going to have 8 and 4. Remember, 12 is our magic number, 12 columns across the page. We're going to use 8 of them for this first section, and 4 of them will be just for our output text. But remember, our output text has those line breaks in it. So I'm going to say at html.raw. Okay, so notice it's not one of the quick actions or starred actions, because this is something you need to make sure that you know what you're doing on. This is going to take anything inside, any kind of HTML that you pass in, and it's going to display it on the page as HTML and render it. So be very careful using this. This is dangerous, but if you do it right, it's safe. But just make sure you do it right. So model.output text. So that's going to be your output text. That will be what we display and say, hey, here's all the things that are happening right now, like you got a soda, and here's your change. On the right-hand side, this is where we're going to have the list of the different sodas, and you can push the button to get a soda. So inside here, what we need is a for each. So for each, let's say soda in model.soda options. That's our list of sodas. Well, I actually want to have a row with a couple of columns in here. So to do that, I'm actually going to create another div class equals row. This is okay to do. Just be careful how far you nest these things. It can get a little squirrely with Bootstrap if you try and do too much, but nesting a row inside a row is not uncommon. So inside here, div class equals call dash sm dash 8 like before. And we're going to say in here soda, whoops, lowercase s, soda.name. That's the name of the soda. They're also going to have a button. So div class equals call dash sm dash 4. And for now, we're just going to render this button. That's it. It won't work, but we'll just show it. So we'll say button, and this is going to say class equals btn, and that's fine. And we'll say buy. Okay? So we have a list of the soda, and then we're going to have a buy button next to it. All right? Let's see this in action. Let's make sure. Again, these kind of tests are very important to do. Don't just assume that it's all going to work or look how you want it to. There we go. So now we have Coke and a big old space, and then buy, Diet Coke, Sprite, same thing. And it's ugly. That's really what it is. So these buy buttons don't even have a highlight or anything or a border around them. These Coke buttons, or not buttons, but this Coke information is just so far apart. It just does not look like a soda machine. Now here's a trick. Here's what I do. I hit F12. All right. So now let's maximize this. So now I have over here, go to elements, you can see the actual elements on the page. If I mouse over them, it kind of makes them all go funny. Well, there's a upper left-hand corner. It says select an element in the page to inspect it. You click that once. You come over here. I'm going to select Coke. And this is my Coke right here. This is what it's rendering. So it's a call-sm-8, and it's just kind of plain, okay? I want to fix that. So let's do this. Let's change, first of all, the font size is too small. So let's go over here to element style, and I can't make this a whole lot bigger because I can try a little bit. That's about as big as it's going to get, I think. Yeah, I don't want to, well, let's go down below. That's fine. I'm trying to get it so it's visible both places. So notice there's the code we're highlighting. We want to, inside element style, start writing some CSS. Now, if you're not familiar with CSS, this is a markup language. So what it's designed to do is style your page or give it some structure. Think of this like if you're in Microsoft Word and you're just typing text down, it's all plain, but then you highlight some text and you hit that B icon for bold, and it turns your text bold. That's what we're doing here. That's the simplistic version of it. So let's play around it. First of all, font size. Notice we got the IntelliSense here, so it does, where it's not IntelliSense because that's, I believe, Microsoft specific wording, but it's the list that pops up that's like IntelliSense. Okay, so you can fill it out and say, okay, font size is one of the options, as well as stretch, style, variant, weight, and all the rest. So font size, let's give it a size. Let's try 28 pixels and hit enter. Notice over here, now my Coke is a much larger version of Coke. It's not that really tiny little text like you have here. It's the much larger text right there. So that's a little more significant. Let's start there. But then let's put some padding around this so it's not just right up against the edge and right against the next one down and the one above it. So let's just say all around, I'm going to say padding 20 px. When you don't know, give it 20 pixels. And that gives you a significant amount. Okay, that's something. So now it's separated from the others. Now notice the other two are not being modified as well. We're just modifying this right here, which if we cursor over this, there's the actual field now. Okay, so the green is our padding, and then the blue is the actual place for our content, which is just that word Coke. So now let's give it a border so we can actually see this in real life. All right, so let's start with border. Now a border, what we can do is we can give it a color. So let's give it black. And I always do this wrong. Okay, this is my my skill at borders. So black, and I always forget the order. So here's what I do. Forget the order. Just say border dash and then go with color. Because what you can do is you can say the color, the space, and the type all in the same line. But I always get it wrong and forget it, and it's hard to read. So I'm just going to do it separately. So border dash color, and then border dash width. Let's just do 1 pixel. And then border dash style is solid. Notice we now have a border. And then finally, let's round those corners. So that's kind of sharp and just kind of ugly. Let's just say border dash radius. And I play around this. I start with 5 pixels, but we'll probably end up at 10. Yeah, I think 10 pixels is probably better. So 5, 10, somewhere around there. Notice how it curves those corners all over. It makes it look more like what you'd see on a Coke machine. Okay? And finally, these are going to be right up against each other. I don't want that, so let's give it a margin. So margin, but only on the bottom. We don't need a margin all around. So margin on the bottom and 20 px for 20 pixels. That's probably okay. Now, what you can do, if you're careful, highlight this like so and copy it. Now, I'm going to inspect this next element down. I'm going to paste it in here. Notice it pastes the same values. I'm going to do it one more time for a sprite, just so I can see how it looks with all 3 of them together. I think that looks pretty good. Now, the one thing we don't have here is we don't have any color, but Bootstrap has color built into it. It has some standard colors for different types of things. So we're not going to color it manually. We're going to color it using the Bootstrap colors. So with that, I think we're going to leave this concept alone. And now what we're going to do is go back to, I'm just going to move this out of the way. Even though it's still running, I'm going to go over to my solution and go to www root. Inside of CS, I want to go to site. This is your overriding CS, or CSS, the stuff that you override Bootstrap with. Go to the very bottom. I'm going to say, I want to have that CSS that I just wrote be applied with a class name. Let's call it soda-tab. Note to put a dot in front. I'm going to paste those values I got from my Chrome window. So now all of these will be applied whenever you use the class soda-tab. All right? So now we can apply that. I'll just copy this and apply that to right here. For our name, we'll say soda-tab. Okay? So now that gets applied every time. We could restart this, but I'm not going to yet. Instead, I'm going to bring the window back up. And this is what I do to play around. I'm going to now figure out what color to use for this, this button. So notice up here, and let's kind of shrink this down a little bit. Notice how for Sprite, well, let's just go back to Coke for a minute. So Coke, notice how it says, okay, the class, there's a class, and then the style. We didn't have that before. It put that on there because we modified it ourselves. So now what we can do is we can double click on the class of call-sm-8. I'm going to put something at the end of it. So I'm going to put a space. I'm going to put a new class. Let's do BG for background. This is a Bootstrap specific. We're going to say primary. All right, that makes it a dark blue or darkish. It's not dark, but it's a very solid blue. We're going to use the standard coloring from Bootstrap. We're not going to modify those. But I'm not a big fan of that. Let's go with, we can go with something like warning. We'll make it yellow. I don't like that. Danger makes it red. Info makes it a teal kind of color. Still not a fan. Let's do this. Let's make this a, how about secondary? See what that is. That's a gray color. It's better. It's not horrible. I'm not liking the border color. If I uncheck the box, notice that, oh, go off. That's the one problem with these things. I kind of like that better with no border color. So let's turn the border off entirely now that we have the background. Leave the border radius though. So I think that looks a little better. But Coke should not be in black. But again, we do have the option of making some changes here. Let's say text dash, I believe it's white. Yep. So that's a Bootstrap class again. So text dash white. And now we have better contrast on our, it's not a button, but it's the place where we're going to have the name of our soda. Now this is probably also the place where you put a logo or something else. But we don't have logos in the database. We're not going to worry about that. So I think that's fine. But notice what we've done. We've added these two classes, bg-secondary and text-white. I'm actually going to copy these. Okay. And then go back over here and I'm going to paste them in before I forget about them. Notice you have soda-tab, which we unchecked the boxes for black, 1 pixel, and solid. All right. So let's save that. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to stop this, close this out, and I'm going to restart it right away. Because I've changed things. I've made it into this class here, and I want to make sure that it gets reflected properly. And that does. One of the things I often do is I forget to transfer one of my settings. And then what happens is it's looking great, and then I just move on to something else, thinking I've transferred all my settings. And then when I finally go back to it after a few, minutes working on something else, the screen looks horrible. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to transfer settings. And to go back through the process again when I've already stopped thinking about that and started thinking about something else. So just check right away to make sure you've transferred your settings correctly by reloading the page. But also make sure that before you close this page out, that you've transferred all the settings. I've done that too, where I'm like, oh, I got it all. I reset the page, and no, I don't. So make sure you transfer them all. Now, these buttons are still horrible, just awful. So F12 to bring up the developer tools, and let's inspect this. And all of a sudden, now the developer tool is in the wrong spot. Where before, you can change that by this ellipsis here. Let's dock them down below, and I can grow just a little bit. Or were they? I do look on the right-hand side. All right, well, I think that'll work. So, oh, I'm sorry. This was over on the right. That's what it was. But now it's down below. And it's close. It's close that you want, and we can change the color of this if you want to. But I think maybe primary usually works. That's the primary button color typically. We need some rounding here because that's just not right. So let's do a border radius. We did 10 pixels before. Normally do 5, but I think, yeah, that seems to be about right. So it looks like we've got a good format going on here with our two buttons. What we can do is over here we have the total height. So you can look at the total height and total width, the coloring, all this, and this is the computed values. Okay, so with this, let's see if we have the totals. We have to do the addition ourselves. It's so hard when you have it zoomed in like this. All right, so we'll do the addition ourselves. So it's 1 is the border, and then 20, and then it's 45 wide by 42 high. So with that, it looks like we have 42, 80 to 84 high, whereas this over here is 42, and then this is 82 high. So it's not quite the same 82 high versus, what was this other one? 84 high, it looks like it's a border. Ah, the border adds 1 pixel. So we could say that we could say border width equals 0. Oh, am I on the right thing? I don't know that I am. Let's go back over here. Let's make sure we select the right one. And then say border width equals 0 px, or 0. And that should give us a match. So 42 and 20s. That gets us our match that we need. I think that will work. It should be, because I think that our padding at the bottom, or I'm sorry, a margin at the bottom will carry over because it's a row. So now you can apply the same thing to the other buttons. So I'll just copy this, and then we will select the buy button down here and paste it. And again, on this one, and we'll paste it. We do have to say BTN-primary. There we go. And we'll do the same thing for this one. Again, that is BTN-primary. So now there's our soda machine. That's what it's going to look like. We could move these closer if we wanted to, but I think that works. I think it's fine to have that spacing. But now, so if you want a Coke, you just hit the buy button right here. So we need to capture these values right here. Let's make sure we copy these. And we'll come back over here to our site.css, and we're going to say soda dash, instead of tab, let's say button. We could do soda dash BTN to follow the bootstrap, but I think soda, yeah, you know what? Let's follow bootstrap. Soda BTN. Even though it's normally BTN dash something. Well, if it's BTN dash something, let's follow in their footsteps, as long as you don't step on their toes. So BTN dash soda. And now I'll paste these in from our page, and then we'll make sure we go over here and apply a BTN dash primary and also the BTN dash soda. All right. And now it should be, if we stop this page and I restart it, that we have our values and they all look correct. That's what should happen. And it does. And it even should be that if we shrink this page down, that they still shrink and look pretty much the way they should. Okay? Now the very smallest will actually stack these weird, and that would be a problem. We have to fix this for the very smallest version. That's as small as you can go anyway. But that right there is still a phone screen size, and that looks great. Okay? So on a larger screen, it will still look just fine, and on a smaller screen, it will look fine as well. So I think that's what we want for this display. So we can close this out now. And now we can do is go back here and make some more modifications. So that's one row with a bunch of rows inside of it. So this is, notice for each, so for each one of these items, it gets a row. But that's inside of this overall column of 8. So that this can be right next to it, even though there's multiple rows to the left of it. Okay? But now outside this overall row, let's add another row. So div class equals row. And then inside here, we're going to say div class equals call for column dash sm for small dash 4 for 4 column. class equals BTN, and let's give it a style. So BTN, wow, that was bad. BTN dash, let's make them not the focus, so secondary. You know what? No, let's make them primary. Primary, and then we'll say $0.05. Now, this is not formatted currency. If I wanted to make sure this would work, let's just do it, because we're going to say at string.format. We're going to say open quotes, open curly braces, 0:C, curly brace, close quotes, and then we're going to say our value is 0.05, like so, and that will format our string for currency, and it will work for different currencies as well. Now, I'm putting this as a nickel, but not every currency has the equivalent of a nickel, or 1/20th of a full dollar. Okay, so in Europe it would be a euro. So a 20th of a euro, I'm not sure if you have that small of a coin. So just note that it may not transfer exactly right, but I am going to try and make it at least cross-culturally relevant. But it may be that it makes more sense to just always make it US currency. Do it 2 more times, 10 and 25 for the 3 different values. Everything else I'll leave alone. Let's call this good. And I have one button down here. And it's going to be class equals BTN, and then BTN dash. Let's do warning this time, because this is going to be the let's call it eject money button. So if they want to cancel the transaction, they push the eject money button, and it gives them their money back. All right, let's look at this and make sure it looks presentable. So the machine, so you have deposit coins, you can click on any of those 3 values, and we also have the cancel transaction. Notice it all fits right underneath. This is easier to see. It stands out better than that exclamation point. So if there is an error message, meaning it's not null or white space, then I'm going to say, let's give me a paragraph with class equals text dash danger, meaning red text. And then inside here we'll say model dot error message. Okay, and that will show the error message if there is one, and it won't show any of this or leave space for it if there's not. Right? So now we can start working on our posting. Let's go down to the bottom here. We have our deposit coins. We're going to start here because you really can't eject coins and you can't buy a soda until you have money put in the system. So let's do that first. So we need to have each of these buttons call the post method. So let's go over here. We have our on post, or on get, we can shrink that down. We have our on post for depositing coins, which is just a regular post. So as long as deposit is greater than 0, you have to put a value in deposit. Each of these buttons needs to do that. Now you could do this with JavaScript, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do this with just Razor page syntax, okay, all server side. because otherwise you don't know which user to apply this deposit to. So input type equals hidden. We don't want to show it to the user, but we do want to pass it through. And then ASP-4 equals user ID. And that will pass the user ID back through the post. We also want to pass the deposit, also hidden. We want to give it a value. Value equals 0.05 for 5 cents. Let's do the same exact thing 2 more times. Okay, and this time we'll say for 10 cents, and this time for 25 cents. Let's make sure we change the values in the input box as well. We can get rid of these other 2 buttons because we've now duplicated them. And now we have 3 post methods. The user doesn't really know that, not unless they inspect the page. But it will now post the values for us, in theory. Let's find out if it works. So if I go to soda machine, and I say 5 cents, notice that the amount right now is $0.00. 5 cents. Now it says 5 cents, and our URL up here says user ID equals D4C1. If I hit 10 cents, now it says 15 cents, URL is the same. 25 cents, now the URL is the same. Now, if I were to copy this URL, open a new tab, and paste it in, notice it says 40 cents because this specific user has 40 cents. If I were to change this from an 8 to a 9 and hit enter, that user has $0.00. So just note that that ID is important. But it allows the user to even bookmark their particular soda machine and go back to it, and it will still have money in it if they have not used that money. So we've now deposited money, and it works. Okay? Now let's wire up that eject money since we want to get the money back out sometimes. So cancel button. Let's actually copy this form post because guess what? We're going to use the same or a similar type thing. So let's paste that below our H3 and let's cut out our button and paste it right here. But make sure we also say that the type equals submit. That's what triggers this post method. All right, but we can't post to the same method. We also don't want to deposit money, so let's get rid of that. We can't post the same method because that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to deposit money. We're trying to cancel. Well, how do we call this to cancel? What we need to do is modify this form a little bit. So we have the method equals post, but we say ASP dash page dash handler equals cancel. Cancel? Yes. We have a post method with a cancel at the end, otherwise known as on post cancel. Okay, so it kind of adds those 2 together. Now we're just passing the user ID. That's all we need to care about is what's the logged in user. And you want to eject their money. Let's try this out. All right, we're launching. Soda machine. We have to have money first, so let's put in a couple of quarters, a dime, a nickel. We have enough money to buy something, but instead we're going to eject the money. And over here on the right, it says you've been refunded 65 cents. It's a little small, but we can work around that. And deposit amount is now 0. So we now have an eject button. Also notice up here on our URL, we have the user ID. We also have output text equals you have been refunded and the amount. That's what gets shown right here. So if I were to change that for whatever reason to 95 cents and hit enter, it says you've been refunded 95 cents. Now, have you? Well, no, you have not. In fact, the system has no knowledge of you ever having 95 cents. You've just manipulated a URL. you have not made any changes on the server side. So you may think you're all cool, but you haven't actually broken the system. You just made your own page say whatever you want, which you can also do by hitting F12 and by using the select right here, selecting this, and then let's shrink this down. Oh, what it says right here. You've been refunded 95 cents. Double click that. $1,000.95. Okay, that's all I've done. So whether you do it this way or whether you do it in the URL doesn't really matter. But if you took off the and output text equals, you get rid of it, but it's still that same page with your account. So again, it doesn't really matter that they have manipulated that URL. It's not affecting anything. The only thing it could really affect is if they changed the user ID and wiped out their own account, or if they just happen to know somebody else's ID, they could probably make changes to their soda machine. That's kind of like saying if someone's putting coins in a soda machine and you knock them out of the way and then push the button for the soda that you want, you could manipulate the system. Yes, you could. All right. In the real world, if we were going to make this into a multi-user system, I wouldn't put the user ID on the URL necessarily, unless it was this low key of an application. But if it was a really secure application, it was really important that we didn't do this, then what I'd do is you'd have to log in. And then I'd get the user ID from the logged in user. And so they couldn't even manipulate that. But we're not worrying about the logged in user at this point. We're saying that's okay. We will just put that in the URL. But we can change this code at any point to use that user ID instead, that logged in user. Okay. We've got deposits working. We've got cancels working or eject money. Now I need to figure out this buy button. The good news is, let's just copy one of these. It's the same stuff. Actually, let's copy this one down here because this one has the page handler. And that's what we'll have for our buy buttons here, is we need to have a page handler. So let's paste it like so. And I'm going to say, let's just copy this whole thing. Actually, we'll do a cut. And then I'm going to paste it here. Just make sure you add that type equals submit. But that way you have the formatting correct for this. In fact, you know what? Did I have the formatting correct on this? I do. Okay. Just making sure I did the copy and paste. I didn't just try and change the text here. Otherwise, you'd lose the classes that you applied. Okay. So instead of cancel, we need to say soda. Because over here, we have on post soda. So that's what we want for our page handler. We want to pass in our user ID, but we also have to pass in the object of which soda they're asking for. But that is a complex object. How are we going to pass that complex object? We can't just pass soda because that is that soda model. That won't work for our input types. But what we can do is copy the input type, paste it twice. Let's say instead of user ID, I'm going to say selected soda, that's what we're going to try to pass it into, dot name. All right. And the other one's going to be selected soda dot slot occupied. But the value And that should be it. Let's find out if it is. There's a possibility that our sewing machine's actually done. What if it actually works in the first try? Sewing machine. So let's start with a simple use case. 2 quarters, a dime, and nickel. So exact change. I want a Coke. Notice the amount goes down to 0. Here is your Coke. You use exact change, so there is no change to refund. All right, let's do it again. Quarter. Notice that message goes away. Another quarter, and you know what? I'm going to add one more quarter, so $1. So we should get 35 cents back. Let's add a nickel as well. So we get 40 cents back, which should be a quarter, a dime, and a nickel. So I'm going to ask for a Diet Coke this time. Notice it goes to 0. Here's your Diet Coke. Here is your change, a quarter, a dime, and a nickel. Excellent. So now we have our soda machine, the user interface portion of it, totally working. In fact, let's just try getting a Coke again with 0 money in the account. User did not provide enough change. Okay. All right. Let's add a whole bunch of quarters, which I'm not sure how many quarters are in the system, but probably not this many. I'm going to buy a Sprite. There's not enough coins to give you change. Okay, then eject my money. You've been refunded $6.50. And now I want to try again with $2. There's not enough coins to give you change. Interesting. So let's eject the money and start over and say $1.50. Not enough change. Okay. Let's do $1. Not enough change. So let's do 75 cents. So I've blown through all my change, it looks like. Let's find out by going back over here, and we're going to open up the data and look at my coins. And yes, my coins are empty. There's no more coins left. They're all gone. So it looks like I've used them all in my testing, which the cool thing here is with Git, I can right click on coins and I can say undo. And it says, are you sure you want to undo that? Yes, I do. They're all back. Machine info. Notice we have values now for, this is how much a soda costs. I believe this is how much the machine has in it from the user. And this is the lifetime value of the soda machine, how much money it's made over its life. User credit. I have 3 different users because I have 3 different GUIDs that have been used. One has 40 cents still in change in the machine, so we could pull that back up. And let's just do that just for fun. The others have 0. So let's just run this again. And just for fun, we're going to pull up that specific user. So I'm going to say, you know what? Let's just say question mark user ID equals and paste that value in. And look, we have 40 cents. We can now say, you know what? There's 70 cents. I want a Sprite. Here's your Sprite, and here's a nickel back for your change. Cool. And now notice that the user has $0 left. We go back to coins. We'll be short 1 nickel. Notice it's been changed. So if we undo that, let's undo that. Notice we put that nickel right back. Okay. Machine info now has more money, and the user credit, like I said, has been changed. So let's leave the let's undo the machine info as well, and let's undo user credit. Okay, so now they're kind of reset back to where we started from, but we have our sewing machine working. Now let's review what our challenge says. The challenge was to create the front end razor page, which we did, and wire up every post method and verify that it all works properly. That's what we did. The bonus challenge was to give it some bootstrap polish. So some layout, some color options, make use of the style.css if we needed to, but don't use custom colors or themes. So we didn't. We just used the basic stuff right out of the box and kind of made it look a little bit more like a sewing machine without kind of breaking out of the mold of what Bootstrap looks like. So we didn't have to resort to paying for something. We just styled it the way that it made sense, and we didn't have to modify bootstrap.css. Don't do that. Modify instead your site.css, which overrides your Bootstrap if you need it to. Okay, so that was our bonus challenge. So we've done our primary challenge, we've done our bonus challenge, and we have a working user page for our sewing machine. So you kind of imitated what we did in the console, but now in Razor pages. All right, so with that, we're done our challenge. Thanks for watching, and as always, I am Tim Corey.